Okay, I think in order to stick to the timelines, it's better to start. Briefly about us, my name is Miryana, my colleague Viliyana.
Hi, everyone.
We are both customer success managers in OfficeRnD for a couple of years already. We have experience in the co-working industry, so we're really excited that we can host this first session of the Flex Track during today's conference. Keep in mind that there is a parallel hybrid session, so make sure to join it later on. As you know, the topic for today is master expansion in times of uncertainty. And we'll be having a discussion with our panelists today on this topic. As we all know, growth and development were always part of and central for each business, but the circumstances in the past 2 years put us in a weird situation that we all had to deal with. We hope that we'll manage to get as much information and inspiration from our speakers. So please welcome them today.
Hi, everyone, again from me. It's actually my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. And I would like to bring first to the spotlight Bruno Rambaldi. Bruno is co-founder of Westhive AG. And currently is operating 5 locations in both Basel and Zurich. And they're actually opening their newest location in 2022, the beginning of 2022. So congratulations. During 2020, Westhive managed to grow 24% despite the pandemic and is currently on track and aims to register 40% growth during 2021. Our next speaker is Erin Maxson. Erin is head of marketing at COhatch at the USA. COhatch is currently operating 14 locations and another 10 under construction or identified all across the USA, as I already mentioned. By next year, they're estimating roughly 15 new sites, which are already identified or under construction, which amounts to nearly 40 locations, which is a big number. Last but not least, we're having today with us on board Sergi Tarragona. Welcome, Sergi. Sergi is founder at Cloudworks. Cloudworks is currently operating 13 locations in both Barcelona and Madrid. During 2020, Cloudworks managed to grow 24% as well, despite the pandemic, and aims to register pretty much similar growth during 2021. All the three of them have a lot to say about expansion, so I hope that all of you, our attendees, would actually enjoy the conversation and take valuable insights out of it. So let's not waste another minute to just dive into the questions that we have prepared with Miryana for today.
Yeah, of course, Bruno, Erin, Sergi, if you want to say a word, we decided to do a brief intro, but yeah, feel free to share a word or two.
Well, thank you everyone for inviting us, and it will be a pleasure to just share with everyone the experiences on expansion.
Great. Thank you.
I'm here also excited to be here and to hear about the experiences of others in other markets and yeah, how they see the world.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here and talk a little bit about our expansion. I think we're trying to keep up as quickly as we can as well.
Amazing. Thank you. So, okay, let's dive into the topic and hear what you have to share with us. So to start with, can you tell us a bit more about your experience in the past 2 years? So what actually happened? Were you continuously expanding during this time, or did you have to wait for the business environment to stabilize a bit? So was it kind of a gradual expansion, or was it a rapid expansion? And at one particular point, how things happened, and how did you go through these 2 years expansion wise, of course? So maybe we can give the word to the lady first to open the discussion.
Yeah, I think over the last 2 years, so I've been full-time with COhatch almost a year and a half now, close to that. It has been kind of a whirlwind of trying to keep up with the times and also try and not over expand at the same time. I think we knew as we were coming out of COVID and we're starting to kind of maybe get a little bit back to normal and maybe the new way we work is changing. We just realized we kind of have to continue to go full speed ahead. There's no time for us to slow down now. We're pretty much announcing new locations every month, every other month right now. Our growth plan is very interesting and structure wise. And it's definitely kind of more of a situation of we know where we kind of want to go, but we also are getting a lot of feedback of where people want us to go. And that's really helped us kind of pick up the pace and make decisions of where we're going to go and grow over time. So.
Thank you. Bruno, Sergi, did you have the same experience or the approach was different in your case?
Yeah, kind of. We never lost confidence since such building projects usually also have a longer lead time. We could not afford to completely stop all activity just because of this pandemic. I mean, in this overall tragic situation, there was this funny aspect that some investors or potential investors asked us about the stress test. So they insisted, like, what's going to happen when there's a global crisis? Everybody's gonna run away. And already then we had told them, well, we're not sure. Probably it could be even a catalyst that might even accelerate growth. And so we remained confident. And after the first few weeks, we saw that, things are just moving on. Because really just in March, April, we doubled in size. We opened several new locations. So we just had to. And luckily enough, I think our business model, our positioning, which is heavily geared towards corporate customers, and at least here we have notice periods around 6 months, so people were a little bit locked in. It still turned out quite okay for us.
Great to hear, Sergi.
So, yes, for us, I think we had a period of 4 months of just like complete shutdown. There was no business moving on. So we did keep up with our expansion plans just because we had signed 3 agreements for new locations. So we, of course, couldn't drop it. So we just we believed in the business, but we weren't how long it would take us to recover. But all of a sudden in June, it turned out that we actually signed 3 of our biggest agreements. So that gave us a lot of confidence. And from then, it was like a bit up and downs. But in terms of expansion, it did give us a lot of confidence to kind of keep up with our expansion plans. And since then, we have looked for more locations and also signed. So we are very, very happy and very confident about the market in Spain.
Wow, yeah, it's amazing that despite the pandemic, actually, all 3 of us in your businesses really believed in the concept and continued growing. But now, if I take you a bit back in the times, can you tell me, because currently you all have multiple locations, but was the expansion part of your brand strategy since the beginning, or did it start just with one location and then suddenly you saw the potential that you can grow actually and open more locations? So I'm wondering, was the business concept focused on expansion initially, or it kind of developed over time? Bruno, maybe you can share first your thoughts.
Yeah, in our case, it's 3 middle-aged guys that founded the company. So from the beginning, it was not a side business. We wanted to build a business for sure. And at the same time, because we came out from the corporate world, we want to do something where we had to do less compromise and where we could do something creative, build up something beautiful, with meaningful, where we would personally enjoy to work in. And so in that sense, we went full speed. We said we played big from the beginning. Our very first space was fairly large, lucky to a landlord that believed in us. But we wanted to do it big from the beginning, and now we're one of the largest players in Switzerland.
Thank you. Sergi, what was the story for your brand in Spain?
So our brand actually was created, I have to be honest, as a side business. I was still working for a startup, and I just thought, I'm never gonna earn more than 2,000 euros, so let's start a co-working and earn 2,000 euros on top of that. But quickly, in 3 months, I saw that there was something else there, and there was a potential. So we suddenly kept growing within the building, and then I stopped working for that startup, and then yes, the Cloudworks brand turned into a brand strategy of expansion.
Amazing. Erin?
Yeah, I would have to say it definitely wasn't in our plan. We much so about community and being localized. And Matt, if you're watching this and I'm telling the story wrong, then I guess you can come down here and I'm underneath your office. But really, we kind of fell into co-working. Matt and the founders really wanted to build something for themselves. They wanted a different way to work, meet, and live, which is their tagline. So expanding really wasn't on the brain. It was like, how do we make this work? It just light bulb kind of turned on when people were like, oh, this is so cool. I wish I had this X place and Y place. And it's really just taken off from there. The interest has really what's driven our expansion. I think because of the culture of the business.
Okay, thank you. It's interesting to see that you have you can observe both on one hand brands that having this in their strategy, and others that the idea evolve over time. And talking about that, I'm wondering how do you actually decide when it's time for expansion? Is there kind of a turning point for each of your organizations when you say, okay, this is the sign that now we should start working on opening a new location? Could be something that changed in your city or in your country, so you see a potential, or any kind of business-wise related sign that you're keeping an eye on and actually tracking and rely on. Sergi, maybe we can this time start with you.
I think that we use many tools to identify if there's still demand in the city and both cities, and basically you can use brokers. They do send market reports on a trimester basis, but also if you already have your business based like I think any of us here, you do receive a good amount of leads, so you kind of see the potential of the market and where those leads are going, and even by talking to them, for instance me, by being in contact with my sales team, I can tell if clients are having a hard time finding a space either with us or with somebody else in Barcelona, or there's plenty of space, so there's actually a lot of competition, and that can be very well seen from your potential customers. And I think it's a good tool to kind of see if there's still a potential growth for the market in the short term.
Thank you. Erin?
Yeah, for us, I think expansion is a little bit different. We're based in Columbus. We have 9 locations, Columbus, Ohio, and the United States. We have 9 locations just in Columbus. Overall, to have a COhatch in every neighborhood. So our goal is to kind of saturate where we're at and kind of move in a different direction depending on how far it is. We just announced, I guess, our national location in Times. It's a little further away, but most locations are centralized around the Ohio region at the moment. And so that's how we're kind of going from there and seeing what expansion is like in the cities around us before we start going really far further away. So, but that's, I think for us, our growth is really dependent, like I said, on the people, definitely interest. We definitely have an idea of where we want to go, but at the end of the day, we really try and stay centralized in the communities we work and live in, and then try and find people in those cities that are interested to be impactful leaders and things.
Before we take the discussion further, Erin, is there any chance that you have somehow switched off your camera, as we are currently not seeing you? Just checking in with you.
I think the internet connection wasn't very stable, so just so you know, your camera is off right now.
Is it working now? I just turned it on and off again. It's still on my side.
Yeah, currently not seeing you. Okay, perfectly. You're back.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, bringing you back to the discussion. Let's talk a bit more about expansion plans specifically, because they might not be there from the beginning, but as the time goes and you can see that there is demand, for sure they're appearing. Are you currently following any strict expansion plans? And what I mean by strict expansion plans is, for example, 2 locations per year, 3 locations, etc. Can you just tell us a bit more about that? And as we lost Erin for seconds, let's start with her now.
Erin, sorry, I didn't hear. Is it
Erin.
Erin.
Yeah, sorry. I don't think we have a strict expansion plan. We know we want to expand rapidly, so we have an overarching goal over the next 10 years, which I'm not going to say on here because we'll see where we get, right? But internally, we have an overarching goal of how many that we want, and we're just kind of taking it a year at a time and trying to understand how far we're going to get in a year. So next year, we have, we're looking at different sites and all that stuff already. But it's one of those things that we're kind of taking it as we go, because we know people are really excited to have us and we're excited to be there. So our strategy is a little more flexible, I would say.
All right, Bruno, go ahead.
Yeah, so we are already now set up for a growth of about 2 to 3 sites per year. And we are in the middle of a capital increase to further accelerate this growth. But what is really I would say, kind of a bit the bottleneck is finding good locations. That's something where we really don't compromise on. One of the key criteria, for example, for us is to be very close to a public transportation hub. And we literally mean 100 meters or less. So we want to be close to a train station, to a busy train station, for example. And a few more criteria. We want to have always a garden space. We always want to have a good micro location. We always want to have good lighting in the rooms. So that's kind of the bottleneck, and that's why we're constantly scouting all the time looking at buildings. And it's really like when we find a good building, we do the project. And if we don't, we won't compromise, and we might delay growth even a little bit until we found the perfect object.
How about you, Sergi?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit the same. I mean, we do tend to grow between 2 and 4 locations per year, but we need to find the right building. Otherwise, we would not be compromising our growth.
I understand, and I'm actually very happy that you're mentioning already 2 times building, because our next question is actually exactly focused on where to grow my space next. Mira and I'm sure that many other people were always very curious how exactly you decide where to expand. How do you decide if it's going to be only a floor? How it's going to decide if it's going to be a whole building? Now, with all of the change of circumstances, are we going to work, for example, with another landlord? So can you just tell us a bit more about, Bruno, you already summed it up pretty well for your case, but how do you decide where to expand next? Sergi, we can start with you this time if you'd like. Yeah.
For us, we have a very strong criteria about always opening up new locations downtown, where there is like a very well connected crowd and a very well connected transportation system, and most people actually can walk home. If you look at the Barcelona map, for instance, where we have most of the locations, you can walk to each location within 10 minutes. and we have most locations concentrated downtown. So we have not reached like the perimeter of the city or nearby cities, but we have covered downtown so that everyone can actually walk to work within 10 minutes.
Right. Erin, what you got to say about it?
For us, you guys kind of summed it up. Obviously, you need to find a great location in order to put your great service in there. For us, we tend to have the entire building. I don't think we have one location right now where it's just a floor. Our team, we have a whole team of environmental graphic design people and construction, and we really try and find buildings that have some history, or like you said, in kind of a connected community area, like the strip downtown or something like that, where we do want it to be easy for you to get in and go to work. We want you to come in as often as you can. But historic buildings are always great because we're able to tie it back and make it a more unique experience. And so a lot of our places, we haven't necessarily built from scratch. It's like we find a great place and hopefully a great building inside of that community. And that's just kind of how we're rolling and trying to decide as we grow, how do we keep it localized and community focused rather than building up something super modern every time.
Yeah. So if we can sum it up, it's pretty much historical buildings, public transportation, and downtown. However, let's change the perspective and just let us think that in the past years, decades, years, it's always been let's us as individuals live closer to where we work. However, now that everything has changed, have you actually thought of bringing your sites closer to your tenants' homes? And have you actually considered that when you're now approaching your new expansion plans, new expansion buildings, etc.? For example, bigger neighborhoods where it's going to be just 10 minutes walk from where I live instead of downtown and closer to public transportations. Erin?
We want to put a co-op in every neighborhood as we can. And housing here, behind housing over here. This is a very tight-knit community park. There's a lot of residential. So our goal, especially in Columbus, we can really start to see the shape of things. There's pretty much one in every city or in the suburbs somewhere. And that's our overarching goal, is to always make sure it's possible as possible. Because we know that nobody wants to commute an hour, 2 hours every day. So
yeah. We wouldn't. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, Switzerland has rather smaller cities, so you're very quick in the fields and in the woods. So yeah, in the smaller cities in Switzerland, you have again like a segment of co-working spaces which do it as a side business, and we don't want to compete with them. So we rather focus on downtown central areas and places where, yeah, even when you are living outside in 15 or 20 minutes, you are at Westhive because you're just so quickly commuting.
That's good. That's the advantage of a small. Small is beautiful.
I think from our side, we would like to try to expand to a second city, like close to Barcelona, in order to kind of bring the co-working to the people and not the people to the co-working. But we know that it is more risky than opening downtown. So we have not found the right opportunity. And as Bruno says, I think our type of clients are also mostly like international people that just want to base their head office in Barcelona and just bring people to the center, because people live in different locations and they need to meet somewhere, and Barcelona happens to be the best kind of a hub in the area.
Yeah, absolutely understandable. And now that you have new locations, you have this new business environment, are you changing your business model and as a whole with some of your new locations, or you're sticking to the same services and products that you were pretty much providing in the others? Is there something that was newly born and would be introduced uniquely in one of your new expansion locations? It would be interesting to hear more about it, maybe. Bruno?
Yeah, in our development since 2017, we made some experiments. So we tried some interim locations, we tried smaller locations, larger locations. But right now, our focus is quite clearly large locations. So that's 300 plus desks and with a very heavy focus on hospitality. So we have our own food and beverage business, we have a conferencing business, and we try to leverage the synergies between these business areas. I mean, we do not just try, it's actually working very well for us. And so that's our path.
That's great. Great to hear. Erin, how about yourself?
The biggest thing we learned through the pandemic is that we need to make bigger event spaces. Obviously, with having to be 6 feet apart and things like that, that's some of the things we're starting to take into account. We've also started adding more lifestyle benefits as we're seeing more people come in, and especially from corporate, these flex and hybrid work plans. We're seeing a lot of people want to do a mix of co-working and a private office. So want the benefits to come with it. We have a member beach house. We have some of these things that we do that when you become a member here, you maybe offer things at work, but if you're no longer on the US, you can probably size and put it in with that too. So some of the things to kind of expand upon. We also have restaurant, food and beverage as well, starting concepts, a lot of lifestyle, because we want people to really spend the whole day here. Which you can't see, there's a bridge back there, but we have a gem. So we invested in gems and trying to just bring the whole thing full circle, an integrated work, meet, live situation. And we've just had such great feedback on it. And I think we're just seeing a lot of that moving forward.
Yeah, from our side, I think that the business itself is running exactly the same, but we have focused more on events. So 2 of the locations that one has been opened and the other one will be open in the next month, is very corporate events. There were no corporate events for a year and a half in Spain, so that kind of killed all the business in that segment. So it's a good opportunity for us to just start this business and focusing on corporate events.
Okay, thank you. Just a note on the time. We have another 15 minutes left, so let's try to cover 3 more questions so that we can stick to the schedule. And my next question is actually related to the topic of cross-country expansion, because all 3 brands are operating in the same countries. And I was wondering whether you had considered expanding in different country. What are, in your opinion, the pros and cons of cross-country expansion? And what are the potential stoppers, in your opinion, that are keeping you within your country at this point? Bruno, maybe we can start with you.
We are rolling out 10 spaces in Barcelona in spring. No.
Okay.
Welcome home.
No. Yeah, we are still, by international standards, a fairly small player with 5 spaces. 2 years ago, we very heavily looked into expanding to Vienna. There was an opportunity to have a joint venture with a local operator there. And for us, we very quickly learned that for us, that would have been a very big step, to have an own legal entity, to have all the overhead in the country. And plus for us, I mean, and in Switzerland and Austria, it was a little bit of a culture shock. So it's we have quite some respect of this step. But as we have been working internationally in the past, it's definitely going to be on our agenda in 1 or 2 years, and we're looking at the market. But in the meantime, there is so much to do in Switzerland, so the opportunities are here, and those are quick wins in comparison.
Thank you. Sergi?
I think this same reasoning applies at least to us and to players, I would say, in Europe at least. we see that our own city or our own country has already a lot of potential to grow in. So people are not considering going abroad. For instance, for us, it wouldn't make sense. We could think of going to Portugal or south of France, but there is so much to think, even in Barcelona or Barcelona, Madrid, and third cities in Spain, that we have not even considered expanding internationally.
For us, I think it's the same thing. We're looking to conquer where we're at before we move across the sea somewhere. So we are pretty heavily focused where we're at and kind of expanding in a radius around us. So I'm not always privy to those conversations, but I can tell you that I don't think we'll be going abroad anytime soon.
Yeah, we're talking about different sites after all. USA is huge. Well, as Sergi already mentioned, it's a bit risky starting something new, right? Moving to some suburban location, etc. So let's talk a bit more about risk. Risk is always a part of the game. So actually, what do you think are the hidden risks when we're expanding your business? Sergi, let's start with you because you actually started the risk.
Hidden risks. So, well, I would say that the Excel sheet supports everything, right? So you make a plan, but what if that doesn't happen? What if a pandemic just hits right in like 2 months after you open a new location? So I think that's most of the biggest risk. But in terms of, for instance, location or choosing exactly where you want to go, there is not so much risk, at least from our side. I would say, yeah, all of the locations that we have opened, we have never regretted because of the location. We haven't said, oh, this location is not working. I think that the recipe here is just like follow downtown and maybe try different like kind of neighborhood, little by little, and then you're good.
What do you think about it, Erin?
I don't know. We're pretty transparent about our risk. I mean, some of the things we've discovered, especially since the pandemic hit, is construction timelines have been way off, and so you're trying to keep up with things and trying to honor promises and some of those things that we can't always do. And I don't necessarily think it's a hidden risk, but it's not something we really thought too much about before. So when you do have a location and things are, we're kind of up and down as everybody was, or trying to make sure that everything happens the way we want it to. That's really the biggest thing is, like you said, more of the worldwide pandemic uncertainty or not knowing if materials are going to come in on time for us. Because when we're ready to open a location, we want to open doors and, start getting some people in here.
Bruno, what's the risk?
Yeah, adding on to what Sergi and Erin, we also have like the risks when you're building. You have a budget, and then suddenly you might have some ugly surprises. Some buildings are easier, especially if it's an older building that you're renovating. You might have some ugly surprises. So I guess that's the learning curve of a flex space operator. We by now we know much better what we have to look at in terms of ventilation shafts and all the infrastructure. So there is some learning there, because if you get some things wrong, it can have a very heavy impact on how the space works for you operationally, but also for your customers.
And actually, again, speaking about operationally, and when you're expanding, did you guys consider hiring new teammates for the expansion and the new locations, in order to plan everything, or are you entirely putting your internal team responsible, or maybe more senior people responsible for the expansion and the new buildings? How did you go about it? New hires or senior people that are currently working for us? Sergi, let's start with you.
When we open a new location, for us it's very important that the team has already passed by and has experience in previous locations, so that they bring Cloudworks to the new location. They bring the spirit and the same culture. So definitely we try to always involve people from the that have already been hired. But of course, we're growing, so we need to grow the team as well. And we're definitely growing the we have grown the team substantially.
Erin, how are things with COhatch?
I would say, I mean, we have some pretty strong internal teams that help us get the location up and running. It's one of those, like you said, keeping the culture. We have very unique the way we design internally, that we do have a set team they're the go-to team when we know we're going to open a location. As far as hiring people like community managers at the front desk, our biggest thing is when we hire, obviously, if they're a cultural fit. I think that's our biggest thing because we want to make sure that everybody feels COhatch when you walk in the door. So yeah, we do a little bit of both, but we normally just have our internal team until we're a few months ready to go, before we're about to open doors.
It's the same. So basically, new hires will first spend 2 to 3 months in a central location where they get infected with our virus, and then then they go and work in the new locations, and they will get stuff until they are independent.
Great. So in order to kind of wrap it up, every conversation, every panel ends with a conclusion. So if you are to give one very word advice to everyone that's out there, any co-working operator that's trying to expand, what would that be? Bruno, I can see that you're prepared for this answer, totally.
Well, I'll probably go back to what Jamie said in the intro session. I mean, know who your customer is and do everything in view of what your customers want, and be close to them. I mean, we're sitting here among them, and we're feeling the same problems that they feel. So there's nothing better than customer orientation.
Thank you. Sergi, what's your advice?
I would add to that. Unfortunately, that's the theory. It cannot always be so accurate. But this should be like trying to be on the customer's feet. I think it is very important.
I agree with all that. I mean, from the beginning, ours has been customer centric. Our founders needed something like this, and so they built it for themselves. Really, the thing that I have to say is always develop good culture. I think that's, if you're looking to expand, what has really sold us. It's not a hard sell when you walk into a COhatch, because everybody feels the culture. Everybody wants to be a part of it, whether or not they have a need for our services, or if they only want to use one piece or another, or doing a lot of custom plans and things. But really, I mean, if you're looking for investment support, that is the best thing I can tell you, is develop good people, continue to have a really good, consistent culture that is very inviting and welcoming, and people will come to you en masse. And we're starting to kind of feel that pressure almost, because we want to be in every city and all of that. And that's a great problem to have. But it's one of those things that if you're wanting to expand and you need help expanding, controlling the culture, making sure everybody's a cultural fit is a huge piece of that, because every time we bring somebody new in, they feel it, and it just generates relationships and people that want to help more.
So definitely cultivating your culture, multiplying it into different locations, and listening to your members and clients' needs out there. So if I can sum up, maybe those are the 3 main points that can be given as an advice to our listeners.
Great. Thank you all for your thoughts and for your readiness to share your experience with us today. We definitely wish you and all of the attendees growth, not only throughout the next year, but throughout the years to come. I do believe that we all deserve it after the 2 very, very hard and unexpected years that we went through business-wise and all type of other spheres in our life. Everyone stay with FlexWorld and see what other experts have to actually say about the future of work. Coming up next in the flex track that we are currently in is make the right choice, management or lease agreement, which is also a hot topic currently. So enjoy and see you soon. Oh, thank you again for taking the time.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.